My fiancé but dialed me during his bachelor party. I played the voicemail at the rehearsal dinner. I stood up, tapping my champagne flute with a silver fork until the crystal chimed like a warning bell, cutting through the low hum of the rehearsal dinner. Brad looked up at me from the seat next to mine, his eyes full of that fake, glossy adoration he'd perfected over the last 3 years, having absolutely no idea that in exactly 60 seconds, my father was going to break his nose. The room went quiet. It was a heavy, expensive silence. We were in the private wine cellar of Giovanni's, the kind of place where the air smells like old oak and truffle oil and the waiters wear white gloves to pour water. My mother was beaming at me from across the table, her hands clasped under her chin. My father, the man paying for this entire circus, was leaning back in his chair, looking at Brad like he was the son he never had. I gripped the microphone. My hand wasn't shaking. I thought it would be, but it was steady as a rock. It turns out that when your heart actually shatters, it doesn't make you tremble, it makes you cold. It freezes your veins until you are nothing but a walking, talking block of ice. I'd like to say a few words, I said, my voice echoing slightly off the vaulted brick ceiling. Go ahead, babe, Brad whispered, reaching out to squeeze my free hand. His palm was warm. It made my skin crawl. I didn't pull away, though. I let him touch me. I wanted him to feel safe. I wanted him to never see the train coming. Usually, I continued, looking out at the 40 faces of our closest family and wedding party, the bride saves her vows for the altar. But something happened last night that inspired me. Something that gave me such clarity, I just couldn't wait until tomorrow to share it with all of you. Especially you, Brad. Brad smiled, that charming, lopsided grin that had won me over at a coffee shop 3 years ago. He raised his glass to me. I love you, Sarah. I know, I said. You say that a lot. But actions speak louder than words, don't they? Or in this case, voicemails speak louder than words. I pulled my phone out of my clutch. I saw Brad's smile falter. Just a fraction. A tiny crack in the porcelain mask. He recognized the phone. He recognized the cable I was currently plugging into the restaurant's audio system, which I had arranged with the maitre d' 20 minutes ago under the guise of playing a sentimental slideshow. For those who don't know, I said, my voice hardening, losing the sweet bride veneer, Brad had his bachelor party last night. He told me it was a low-key poker night. Just the boys. Just some beers and cards. I looked at his best man, Jason, who was suddenly looking very interested in his tablecloth. At 2:14 a.m., I said, looking at the timestamp on the screen, Brad called me. He didn't mean to. It was a butt dial. And since he didn't hang up, it went to voicemail. It recorded for 5 minutes and 43 seconds. Brad started to stand up. Sarah, wait. I can explain. We were drunk, guys talk trash. Sit down, I snapped. It wasn't a request. It was a command. You haven't heard your vows yet. I hit play. The sound of thump 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 bass filled the room, followed by the clinking of glasses. Then, Brad's voice boomed through the high-end speakers, crisp, loud, and undeniable. Dude, pour me another one. I need to be wasted to get through this weekend. The room gasped. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. On the recording, Jason's voice laughed. Come on, man. She's not that bad. She's nice. Nice? Brad's recorded voice scoffed. It was a cruel, sneering sound I had never heard him use before. She's vanilla, bro. She's the human equivalent of beige paint. I have to drink 3 scotches just to listen to her talk about her nonprofit work. It's exhausting pretending to care. I watched Brad's face drain of color. He looked like a ghost. He looked at my father, then back at me. Sarah, stop, he hissed, reaching for the phone. Turn it off. Everyone, I was drunk, I didn't mean. I pulled the phone away. I'm not done. The recording continued. So why marry her? Another voice asked. If she's that boring, why lock it down? Have you seen her dad's house? Brad's voice laughed. Have you seen the cars in the driveway? The old man is worth 20 million, easy. And he loves me. He thinks I'm the golden boy. I put a ring on Sarah, and I'm set for life. I just have to play the part of the doting husband for a few years, pop out a kid to secure the legacy, and then I can do whatever I want. It's an investment, boys. Just a business transaction. My father wasn't leaning back in his chair anymore. He was sitting bolt upright, his face turning a shade of purple I had never seen before. His knuckles were white as he gripped his steak knife. Brad, my father growled. It was a low, animalistic sound. Robert, please, Brad stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. It was locker room talk. I was showing off for the guys. I didn't mean it. There's more, I said calmly. I skipped ahead 30 seconds on the timeline. I'm gonna miss Jessica, though. Brad's voice slurred slightly on the tape. That girl is a freak. You know she sent me photos this morning? Asking if I wanted one last ride before the ball and chain gets slapped on. I told her to meet me at the hotel on Tuesday after the honeymoon. That was the kill shot. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the kind of silence that happens after a bomb goes off, before the debris starts to fall. I looked at Brad's mother. She was crying, her head in her hands, unable to look at her son. I looked at my bridesmaids, who were staring at Brad with open hatred. And then I looked at Brad. Jessica, I said softly. That's the spin instructor, right? The one you swore was just a friend when I found her text messages 6 months ago. Brad didn't answer. He was looking at the exit door, calculating the distance. I think, I said, unhooking my phone and dropping the microphone onto the table with a loud thud, that concludes my toast. The wedding is off. The engagement is over. And Brad? You have 5 minutes to get out of this state before my father decides what to do with you. Brad stood up. He adjusted his suit jacket, trying to regain some shred of dignity, even though he was currently standing in the wreckage of his own life. Sarah, you're being hysterical, he said, his voice trembling but trying to sound authoritative. He was gaslighting me until the bitter end. You played a private conversation out of context to humiliate me. That's toxic behavior. Honestly, maybe we should rethink this if this is how you handle conflict. He looked around the room, spreading his hands. I apologized. I was drunk. Men say stupid things. Robert, surely you understand? You've been in business. You know how it is. He tried to appeal to my father. He tried to invoke the bro code. Big mistake. My father stood up. He is 62 years old, but he is 6'4" and spent 30 years hauling concrete before he moved into the office. He didn't look like a businessman right now. He looked like a freight train with a broken brake line. You think this is business? Dad asked. His voice was terrifyingly quiet. You think my daughter is an asset class? No, sir, I paid off your loans, Dad said, taking a step around the table. $140,000. I thought I was investing in my daughter's future. I thought I was helping a young man get a clean slate. I appreciate that, Robert, and I intended to pay you BA. You bought a Porsche, Dad interrupted, taking another step. With the bonus check I gave you for the down payment on the house. You thought I didn't know? You thought I wouldn't check the VIN registration? Brad stepped back, bumping into a waiter who was hovering nervously with a tray of tiramisu. I was going to sell it. Brad squeaked. You called her boring, Dad said, his voice rising now, filling the room. You called my little girl a meal ticket. And you planned to cheat on her 3 days after the wedding? Robert, please, Brad's mother stood up, sobbing. Don't hurt him. He's stupid. He's so stupid. But don't hurt him. Dad looked at Brad's mom. He softened, just for a second. I'm sorry, Linda. You raised him. But you didn't raise him right. Then he turned back to Brad. Give me the keys, Dad said. What? The Porsche. Give me the keys. It's in my name. You're just the primary driver. Give them to me. Brad clutched his pocket. I need to drive home. You can walk, Dad barked. Keys. Now. Brad fumbled in his pocket and pulled out the fob. He threw it on the table. It slid across the linen and clattered against a wine glass. And the watch, Dad said. The Rolex I gave you for the engagement. Take it off. This was a gift. Brad yelled, finding a spark of resistance. You can't take back a gift. That's illegal. Sue me, Dad said. Please. I beg you to sue me. I have lawyers who will eat you for breakfast and pick their teeth with your credit score. Take off the watch. Brad hesitated. Dad lunged. It wasn't a punch, not yet. He grabbed Brad by the lapels of his expensive Italian suit, which Dad also paid for, and slammed him against the brick wall of the wine cellar. Thump. A bottle of red wine on the display rack wobbled and fell, shattering on the floor. Red liquid pooled around Brad's shoes like blood. Get your hands off me. Brad screamed, flailing. He tried to push Dad away, but he was weak. He was soft. He was a man who lived on other people's money and other people's sweat. Dad pulled him close. If you ever come near Sarah again, if you ever say her name, if I even see you in this zip code. Okay. Okay. Brad cried. He was crying now. Actual tears. I get it. Let me go. Dad let go. Brad slumped against the wall. The watch, Dad repeated. Brad undid the clasp with shaking fingers and handed it over. Now get out, Dad pointed to the door. Brad scrambled toward the exit. He looked like a rat scurrying off a sinking ship. He paused at the door, looking back at me. His eyes were full of hate. You're crazy, he spat at me. You're gonna die alone, Sarah. No one else is going to want you. You're frigid and you're boring and your dad buys your boyfriends. That was it. That was the moment the tension snapped. I didn't move. My dad didn't move. My brother, Mike, who had been sitting silently in the corner the entire time, stood up. Mike is the quiet one. He's a surgeon. He has steady hands. He picked up a full glass of red wine. He walked over to Brad calmly. Mike, don't, Brad warned, putting his hands up. Mike threw the wine. It splashed directly into Brad's face, soaking his white shirt, dripping down his nose. Brad sputtered, blinded for a second. And that's when Dad threw the punch. He covered the distance in 2 strides. He didn't use a hook. He used a straight right cross, putting his shoulder into it. His fist connected with Brad's nose with a sickening crunch. Brad dropped. He didn't stumble. He just folded. He hit the floor hard, unconscious before he landed. The room erupted. Brad's mom screamed. The waiters dropped the tiramisu. Robert. Mom yelled, running over. You'll kill him. Dad shook his hand, wincing. He's not dead. He's got a glass jaw. Always knew he was weak. Security rushed in then. 3 big guys in black suits who had been waiting in the hallway. They saw Brad on the floor, bleeding onto the antique rug. They saw my dad standing over him, rubbing his knuckles. Call an ambulance, Dad told the head of security calmly. And call the police. I'll wait. The next hour was a blur of blue lights and chaos. The paramedics revived Brad. He woke up screaming about his nose. He tried to charge my dad, but the security guards held him back. The police took statements. They arrested my dad for assault. He didn't resist. He put his hands behind his back and winked at me as they led him out. "Worth it," he mouthed. I stood in the parking lot, watching the police cruiser drive away with my father in the back. My mother was on the phone with our family lawyer, who was already at the precinct to bail him out. The guests were filtering out, whispering, clutching their party favors. Brad's best man, Jason, walked past me. He stopped. He looked uncomfortable. I tried to tell him to hang up, Jason muttered. I didn't know he was. I didn't know about the money stuff. I just thought he was being a jerk. You laughed, I said coldly. I heard you on the tape. You laughed when he called me boring. Jason looked down. Yeah. I did. I'm sorry. Go home, Jason, I said. And tell Brad if he tries to contact me. I released the rest of the tape. The part about his business expenses that I'm pretty sure the IRS would find interesting. Jason's eyes went wide. He nodded and practically ran to his car. I didn't have any more tape. That was a bluff. But it worked. Dad was out on bail by 3 a.m. We sat in the kitchen of my parents' house, the big house Brad wanted so badly, eating leftover pizza. Dad's hand was wrapped in ice. Does it hurt? I asked. Like hell, he grinned. I think I fractured a metacarpal. But seeing him drop. Best feeling I've had since I retired. I'm sorry, Dad, I whispered, staring at my pepperoni. I'm sorry I brought him into our lives. I'm sorry I cost you so much money. Sarah, Dad put his good hand on mine. The money is just paper. We can make more. But you? You're my daughter. Saving you from a lifetime with that parasite? That was a bargain. He took a bite of pizza. Besides, I canceled the check for the venue. And the florist. And the caterer. I stopped payment on everything an hour before the dinner. We'll get most of it back. You did? I knew something was up when you asked me to bring the lawyer's number to dinner, he winked. I figured we were going to war. The wedding, obviously, didn't happen. We turned the reception into a party anyway. Since the food was already prepped, Dad couldn't cancel the food cost for the actual wedding day on such short notice. We donated it to a local shelter, but we kept the open bar and the DJ for the family. We danced. We drank. We celebrated my non-wedding. Brad tried to sue Dad for the assault and the stolen Porsche. Our lawyer countersued for fraud, emotional distress, and repayment of the loans. Brad dropped his suit within a week when he realized he couldn't afford a lawyer and we could afford an army of them. He moved to another state with Jessica. I heard from a friend of a friend that she cheated on him 3 months later. Karma is efficient like that. I'm single now. I live in a smaller apartment. I drive my own car that I pay for myself. Sometimes, late at night, I listen to the voicemail. Not the whole thing. Just the beginning. Just the sound of the bass thumping and the glasses clinking. It reminds me that the truth always comes out. Sometimes it whispers, and sometimes it screams through a microphone at a rehearsal dinner. But mostly, it reminds me to check my phone before I start talking trash. You never know who might be listening. So, tell me. Am I the monster for publicly humiliating my fiancé and letting my dad break his nose? Or did Brad simply ring up a bill he couldn't pay?
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.